All right, ladies and gentlemen, happy weekend times here for you on a Saturday morning in the Vegas Valley. This is the Snake Sports Talk Show, wherever and however you may be watching and listening to me today. Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter is where you can like and follow me on all social media platforms. Also, you can find me on YouTube by subscribing to the home of the Snake Sports Talk Show. That is the Spotlight Sports Network on both channels, and also follow us on Spotify under the Spotlight Sports Network as well. And I got huge news for all of you guys. If you guys absolutely can't get enough of all of the shows on the Spotlight Sports Network, we have officially launched last night the Spotlight Sports Network website. You guys can find all of our articles. You guys can find all of our video recaps. And you guys can also, too, if you're big fans of the show, we also have merchandising. We have hats, we have t-shirts, and we also got masks as well of all of your favorite shows from all of your favorite colleagues here on the show. And on the biggest network of them all, that is the SpotlightSportsNetwork.com. Definitely enter it in and check it out. Check it out for yourselves. Really do appreciate all of your guys' love and support. I could not wait whatsoever to officially have announced that the website has been launched. This is awesome. I am really, really excited about it. Oh, man. This is going to be a lot of fun. And it's going to be great. Keeping everybody entertained. Really, really good articles. Man, I love it. I absolutely love it. Well, I hope all of you guys are having a great Saturday morning wherever you may be. As I know out here in the Vegas Valley, sun is just rising up. We got a lot to talk about. I have such a stacked lineup this morning. There was so much that was going on all throughout the week. Not to mention, too, in the past weekend. But we're going to end up talking about it. We're going to end up unpacking, unwinding, and we're going to get through these piece by piece. By the way, congratulations last night to the Dallas Stars. They defeated the Colorado Avalanche. They're going on to the Western Conference Final. And who they're going to face? They're going to face the Vegas Golden Knights. Yeah, they won it last night against Vancouver 3-0 in that game. I was super thrilled. I'm super excited. I know everybody in Vegas, they were kind of cringed. They weren't sure exactly how this game was going to pan out, but they are both going to represent the Western Conference Final. And the only team that's sitting back and watching is the Tampa Bay Lightning in the Eastern Conference, waiting tonight for the Philadelphia Flyers or the New York Islanders that they're going to face in the Eastern Conference. I'm really excited about that. You guys can tune into that. That game will be on NBCSN as well. I know one of my colleagues is a diehard Philadelphia Flyers fan, and she hopes that, the Flyers will make it through. So I want to dig into it a little bit more. So let me shift over to the hockey realm. So again, I had said multiple times how everything was going to be shaped. The Tampa Bay Lightning defeated the Boston Bruins. They're in the Eastern Conference Final. And not a lot of people were absolutely sure about them making it to the conference final. I've said this multiple times about the Tampa Bay Lightning. They are playing with a chip on their shoulder. After last year, they were the President's Trophy winners. They had by far the best record in the National Hockey League. And one of their players, Nikita Kucherov, was having an MVP caliber season. And next to a lot of impactful players, Captain Steven Stamkos, Braden Point, and Andrei Vasilevsky, they were all having amazing seasons. But then it came all the way down to the wire. When they made it into the playoffs, the first team that they faced was the Columbus Blue Jackets, and they get swept by them. What a disappointment. But Tampa Bay came in with this fuel of fire, knowing they have a lot to prove. They are absolutely embarrassed of last year's outcome, and they're pissed off. And we look at this year's playoffs, despite having the shutdown, and the first team they faced, Columbus. The first team they had to face to really solidify everything that happened last year, and they beat them. I know people had thought Columbus probably would have had a chance. And it's interesting because Columbus, they started out this season, I wasn't sure what to make of them because they lost a lot of their forwards. They lost Ryan Dzingel, Matt Duchene, Artemi Panarin. They lost a lot of their real good caliber forwards. But they got better. They bring in a guy named Elvis Merzlikins for behind net, and I thought he's solid, and especially next to Joonas Korpisalo. And this team made it into the playoffs. They made it into the playoffs fair and square. They upsetted a Toronto team, which I said this multiple times about them. I talked about them, and I don't believe Toronto is the most intimidating team that walks into the playoff. I don't. So once they started to face off against the Lightning, that was the first step in proving that they need to win this. And they need to prove the doubters wrong. They beat them. They move on. They go and face against the Boston Bruins, which I honestly believe, look, I like Boston and I do like their setup. But then in the end, Boston got burnt out. And now, of course, they're asking questions of, is Zdeno Chara going to return? Is he going to end up returning? And so Tampa now is in the Eastern Conference Final. And they're only about a step away from heading to the Stanley Cup Final, which was one of my predictions. They're a team that's fast in scoring. They're also a team that's tough on defense. They really changed their game. They're a much better, well-ran team. And I know a lot of people have their doubts about John Cooper, the head coach, but he is a hell of a coach, and he's really shaped this team up well. When I look at all these teams in the Stanley Cup playoffs so far, I recap every single one of these games. You got tonight, Game 7, between the Philadelphia Flyers and the New York Islanders. All these teams in the second round. This is where everyone's defense is tested for the most part. Everybody's defense is tested because it's not an easy task to make it to the Stanley Cup final. It's not. So Philadelphia and New York, I think, are very evenly balanced as far as the defense goes and also their goaltending. But the problem that Philadelphia has, one of their key players, Claude Giroux, he's not getting anything going. And it's forcing guys like Sean Couturier, Travis Konechny, and so many others on their offensive line to play harder. And so without their impactful captain there to score goals, put up assists, and really open the ice up for a lot of their offensive scores, it's not happening for Philadelphia. Maybe it might change tonight. Who knows? I think it would be exciting. And I look at the Islanders, for one, because they haven't missed a beat since last year. Now, they didn't make it as far, but they didn't miss a beat. They were a team last year nobody saw coming. And remember, Robin Lehner and Thomas Greiss had one of the best goaltending seasons by far in the hockey world. They had the best goaltending seasons, low goals against average. And then I look at the entire line from 1 through 4, and I also look at the defense, and it's tough. Brock Nelson, Jordan Eberle, they have a lot of really, really good impactful players. And then I look to the other side in the Western Conference. And I knew for a fact that, because the toughest part was why the series had to go all the way to 7 between Vegas and Vancouver. And Vegas was in the driver's seat. And I started to kind of get a little bit concerned with how things were being played, because I think once, and I understand this, and I'm not completely blaming everything on like when the stoppage of play and the boycott happened. Not blaming it. But since then, it seemed like it was like, you know, a slow down moment for them. It seriously did. Because then they would have had to rebound themselves, get themselves back up on track. And Vancouver, I thought, was very impressive. I mean, Thatcher Demko came in at a time where Jacob Markstrom, he's an absolute workhorse in this team. And they were utilizing so much of his time. He played the most minutes. He played the most games. And eventually he was going to get burnt out. But Thatcher Demko came in at an important time for Vancouver and started rattling Vegas's cage. But then it took all the way to Game 7 until the third period of play, where Vegas started to score 3 goals in that night. Led them to victory, made a huge statement. My only fear of it is if they can't take advantage of the power plays. That's one that I think would be a concern, and they need to fix that going into the next round. If they can't take advantage of the power play opportunities, let alone spark up the offense, and they do have offensive players there. These are guys that are capable of scoring goals. I mean, good Lord. You're looking at Shea Theodore, who's been the absolute catalyst in sparking up this team for a defenseman. Playing great defense, shot a bunch of goals. I mean, he's making a statement for himself. And that's what's going to wake up guys like Max Pacioretty, Mark Stone, Paul Stastny, Jonathan Marchessault, Alex Tuch, a lot of these guys. It's going to wake them all up. And then you have the series between the Colorado Avalanche and the Dallas Stars. How many times have I had to say this about Dallas? People have lowballed the Stars for a while now. And I've said this since last year. They are not the team to mess around with. Very intimidating. Defense is really good, I'll be honest. Because I watched John Klingberg and I watched Miro Heiskanen, and they're both playing really good caliber defense. And the one thing that I will say, I mean, Anton Khudobin, he's been playing really good goaltending. And I know things have not looked real impressive out of Ben Bishop, but Anton Khudobin's really fit the bill for them. And he's really showed his piece of the pie. So Dallas, and this is one thing that I've said, that if you're going to beat a team like Colorado, you need to shut down their first line at all costs. That's Mikko Rantanen, Gabriel Landeskog, and Nathan MacKinnon. They let some goals get by, but they didn't let an entire just offensive barrage happen. Dallas was able to hold their ground. They were able to hold their ground until the very end, and they make it into the Western Conference Final. And this is what's going to be an interesting series. Dallas versus Vegas. The headliner, I look at this, I think this series is going to go all the way to 7. I think this game is going to go all the way to 7. And both Vegas and Dallas, they display really good amounts of offense. I think Dallas, in some ways, Vegas just has to pull apart that defense. They really got to pull them out of their, they got to pull them out of their comfort zone when it comes to their defense and really get aggressive with the physicality and with the scoring opportunities. This is why Vegas has to take advantage of those power play goals. They have to. And I do believe that the Vegas Golden Knights are on the quest of winning the Stanley Cup this year. They truly are. After everything that's been happening in the span of months, this team, since the trade deadline, they are ready to win it all. They have a goal. Bill Foley said it himself. Stanley Cup in 3 years. This is year 3. And will they be prepared for what's to come and be able to officially hoist Sir Stanley? It's not an easy task, but I think this is going to be a fun series, and I think this will go all the way to 7. Let me shift to this. So we have the Stanley Cup playoffs on one side. Now let's shift over to the NBA playoffs. Because right now, I think everybody already knows what I'm going to say about the Milwaukee Bucks and when it comes to Giannis. Can we take a moment and actually appreciate and give a little bit of credit about the guy who's really making things happen in that series? I'm talking about Jimmy Butler. You know what's interesting? And a lot of people did not think highly of Miami. Not a lot of people thought highly of them. They have a lot of young kids. They only have at least maybe 2, possibly 3 impactful players in their entire roster. That's on their starting 5, and that's also on their bench. But Miami is really making it happen. And I've told people this year. Like Eric Spoelstra, I haven't seen coaching like that since the era of LeBron, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh. Miami is really looking like the real deal. Now, I'm not highly sold on the Heat right now. Not entirely sold. Because, again, we're only in the second round of the playoffs. And Milwaukee has a lot of things to prove. But right now, with their backs against the wall, I don't even know if it's going to happen. You're already seeing everything happen before your eyes. 1, Chris Middleton, nice kid, like the kid. I think he's good, but he's not a capable number 2 next to Giannis. And what's tough about that is Giannis can't even play like himself when his back's against the wall and they're trailing from behind. You got to give Giannis a lead in order for him to do amazing things. That's shooting threes. That's crushing it at the rim. You got to give Giannis the lead. And when I look at this entire roster with Chris Middleton there, not a strong, capable number 2. I like the kid, but he's got a lot of work on him. And really, too, the bench, it just doesn't look and feel like the same defensive team. I think by the time that Malcolm Brogdon left and went to Indiana, I mean, it changed the focal point of this team. And now they're trailing in this series. It's not looking good for Milwaukee. And I'm going to say this again, that if Milwaukee does not win to go on top in the Eastern Conference, Giannis is gone. Giannis is absolutely gone. And don't be surprised of it. Because in the end, Milwaukee, the reason why that they're still a franchise is because of Giannis. Giannis is the reason why he saved their franchise. Because I'll be honest with you, Milwaukee was pretty much on the map of teams being relocated. How much do you want to bet that at some point soon, maybe in the next 3-4 years, when Giannis is gone, how much do you want to bet that the Milwaukee Bucks are going to relocate? They're probably going to end up renaming themselves, and they come out to, I don't know, probably a city like Vegas. Because apparently Las Vegas seems to have mapped themselves in the sports world with the Vegas Golden Knights. They now have the relocated Las Vegas Raiders. What's to say they don't bring in the NBA as well? And the money and the money revenue that comes in. Because you have to admit, we have the NBA Summer League out here at the Thomas and Mack almost every year. And you have a lot of these superstars who love to come out here into Vegas. Who wouldn't? So that's obviously, and also the WNBA. You have the Las Vegas Aces. That's the other thing that I missed as well. And I can thank my colleague Key for that one. But yes, you also have that. And so Vegas is clearly on the map when it comes to sports. They're clearly on it. I haven't seen a boom like this ever in my lifetime. Being born and raised here in this city, I have never seen a boom like this when it came to sports. But it is a possibility. But when I look at Milwaukee up to this point, Mike Budenholzer, nice coach, but I still think there are some limitations to his coaching method. Giannis is one of the best players in the East, and let alone in the NBA. And then Chris Middleton, nice kid, but I don't think that he's capable of being a number 2. Because you look at some of these teams in the playoffs. I mean, you have Kawhi and Paul George. You have LeBron and Anthony Davis. And you've got Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown and an entire arsenal in Boston. This team, not the same team as last year. And here's what's funny. Toronto pushed them around all last year. When Kawhi was there, Kawhi only had one thing to do: shut down Giannis and shut down their offensive capabilities. That's ball distribution. That's smart shot decisions. That's all of it. They shut him down big time. And Toronto made it in. Toronto made it into the finals. And this is something that Milwaukee really has to make a huge decision about. It's not going to be an easy one, but it is going to be one you cannot dismiss. You can't dismiss this whatsoever. But I look at the rest of the NBA playoffs. Boston right now is in the driver's seat. That's one of my teams that I have speculated all throughout this playoff, that I said don't sleep on them. I think they're a team that's destined to really make it far into the Eastern Conference Final. And I look at the West right now, and last night, okay, Houston, you got, I'm not going to say you got lucky, but okay, you took game 1. Big deal. All LeBron and Anthony Davis had to do was really speculate how Houston plays their game, because they are very ball-centric. They play a lot of iso ball, and they're a very small team. LeBron and the Lakers are going to rebound from this, because the only thing that the Lakers would have to do is utilize Anthony Davis to protect the rim at all costs, and you got to be very defensive at the three-point line, because you do have James Harden who can shoot. But James Harden had a horrible Game 7 against Oklahoma City, and I was not impressed by that. So it's going to be a lot of interesting stuff. I'm super excited throughout this whole playoff series. I mean, man, these playoffs have been very interesting. It's been exciting, and I can't wait for much more. I can't wait for what's more to come. This is going to be a lot of fun, and I'm excited for it. Coming up next, I'm going to be talking a little bit more on the NFL, because we've had a lot of news happening. We've had news of Leonard Fournette now going to Tampa Bay. We've had news of certain players getting cut, and so on and so forth. I'll explain why I think signing Leonard Fournette in the first place for Tampa, how that may potentially impact their team. I'm not saying that they're going to be the most ridiculous team in the NFL, but why I think that this will be a huge impact for them. I'll explain more of that later, coming up next on the Snake Sports Talk Show. Like I said, fans of the show as well, and I know I've got a bunch of people in the I got a bunch of people watching me right now, watching and listening to me. If you guys want to find more of my specific articles and even my merchandise as well, you can go to the home of the Snake Sports Talk Show. That is the SpotlightSportsNetwork.com. Look up the articles under my name as well on the Snake Sports Talk Show. You'll find all interesting articles, and also you want t-shirts, you want hats, you want masks. We've got that all in the merch section just by looking over at the SpotlightSportsNetwork.com. Be right back. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. If you are just tuning in to the Snake Sports Talk Show, welcome everybody. I do encourage all of you guys to like and subscribe to the home of the Snake Sports Talk Show. That is the Spotlight Sports Network, and hit the bell button for all of the latest notifications and news on all of your favorite shows on the network, including the Snake Sports Talk Show. Keep you up to date every weekend. I actually had just gotten this just before coming back up onto the show. So, Adrian Wojnarowski, Woj, one of my trustworthy source guys. And this was something that I thought was very, very interesting. And I'll go right into it just before coming back on from break. So, there is, I'll have it here on Adam Schefter. So, there is a deal potentially being in place, and that's involving two things. One, the Houston Texans, and Deshaun Watson. So, the Houston Texans are working out a deal with Deshaun Watson on the long term, and the contract itself is going to be worth a total of $177.54 million with a $111 million guarantee. Why right now at this point would they do that? It's a foot. Oh, here we go. Oh, wow. This, man, news is just popping up. It's popping up super fast. Let's see. So the news on this today, Deshaun Watson, he's got himself a contract. 4-year contract. $160 million. With at least 111 on that guarantee. I'm going to break that down then on a couple of things. So, one, let me at least talk about the good things behind this contract. Because, number one, since Deshaun Watson had been drafted to the Houston Texans, I mean, he's a really good player, really good quarterback, beautiful thrower of the football, and he's really, really impactful. And I do believe that Houston, when it comes to their franchise and how they're trying to shape everything, they've got a true offensive playmaker. I wish that, Deshaun Watson would have come around since the Andre Johnson era, and they had a lot of real good players. But here's where now Houston's on, they're on the hot seat. Because number one, I do believe Deshaun Watson deserves a contract like this. I really do. 4 years, 160 with 111 million of that contract is guaranteed. So the way that I look at this is that is by far an insurance policy money for a guy like Deshaun Watson. Why do I say that? Because over the years, since Watson has quarterbacked this team, he's already had an ACL tear. He's been sacked numerous times, and he's been tackled. Like, there was one year he was tackled 200 times. Houston, if you're going to give Deshaun Watson exactly every penny of his buck, are you going to fix the offensive line to truly make this team work? Because here's the thing. You moved away DeAndre Hopkins, and you went and got Brandon Cooks, who I'm not even sure what to think of him injury, health-wise, because he's already suffered a couple of concussion issues. Will Fuller can't seem to stay healthy on the field because he's always having problems on the lower half of his body. And then you have Kenny Stills, who I think is a real good wide receiver. I think he's a good kid, but even he can't stay healthy. And then you acquire David Johnson, who he just got his position beat out by Kenyon Drake. Can't stay healthy up on the field. And this is the part where Bill O'Brien, and look, the one quality that I will say about Bill O'Brien that I think is really good is the fact that his mindset, he's big on quarterbacks. I mean, you look at all of these quarterback coach tandems in the league, Jared Goff and Sean McVay, Jimmy Garoppolo and Kyle Shanahan, you look at a lot of these quarterback coach tandems, they all have one thing in common. They're all on the same pages when it comes to impactful plays on the offense. They run through the playbook, and they even piece out a couple of things. But you'd see with how they shape the offense and how they shape every single situation from top to bottom. I mean, they're very impactful. And Deshaun Watson and Bill O'Brien truly have that type of relationship when it comes to a quarterback and coach. Because there's parts of Deshaun Watson's game I really do love. He can throw a deep ball. He can also get you downfield however that he can. But there are some limitations to his game that I think needs to be adjusted. Because, number one, what he needs to do is he needs to stop running himself into danger, especially when it comes to the defense. And when you're facing against tough defenses, and in the AFC this year, where you've got Denver, you got the Chargers, you got Baltimore, in your own division, you've got Indianapolis. That's something that Deshaun Watson really has to readjust his game on that. But besides that, he's a real good, impactful quarterback. And a contract like this, I could tell you, that to me is an insurance policy type contract, because it's giving Deshaun Watson every penny of his buck. You can only hope and cross your fingers, and I hope that this does not happen with him, but I hope that he doesn't come to a scenario like what happened with Andrew Luck, because it took Indianapolis seasons just to really solidify their problems in the offensive line. Houston, outside of Laramie Tunsil, they don't even have a legit offensive line, let alone one that can even help them in the run game. They don't have that. That is something where Bill O'Brien really needs to pay attention more and start fixing the issues. But now he's got more issues on his hand because of the fact of he doesn't have Deshaun's favorite target, DeAndre Hopkins. He doesn't have him. And I don't know how this season's going to pan out for Houston. But I can tell you this, I don't think that they're going to be quite the impactful team. I do believe that the Indianapolis Colts will win the South because they have a strong offensive line. They have really, really good, impactful players. And they got a bunch of steals in the draft. Michael Pittman Jr. at wide receiver, Jonathan Taylor at running back. I mean, the Colts, they look like the real deal. They still got some pieces missing, but I think they're ready to go. They're ready to go with this whole season. So I'm happy for Deshaun Watson specifically. But this now means that Houston is on the radar. They are in the hot seat. And you can only hope that Bill O'Brien makes this happen. I still believe Houston needs to have it. They need to hire a general manager. They need to. I mean, this is probably one of the smartest signings that you can have, because who knows what will happen to Deshaun Watson. And I hope that he doesn't go down the same way as Andrew Luck, where he gets banged up, he gets hurt, and then the talent is gone. The talent is all gone. One thing that Houston really needs to take seriously and hopefully fixes the problem with the offensive line. Few things just before we go into another break, but I do want to end up talking about this. So earlier, and I know a lot of people wanted my intakes on Leonard Fournette, who was released by the Jacksonville Jaguars this week. And then he goes on to sign a 1-year contract with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, I know what a lot of people are saying. They're saying, oh, Tampa Bay, they got all the pieces. They got Tom Brady. They got Rob Gronkowski. They got Leonard Fournette. They got Mike Evans. They are stacked. They may be a team to make it to the Super Bowl. Well, it's an interesting team. Interesting team. You know, it's interesting because I almost look at it like somewhat of an effect like how LeBron has it in the NBA. Wherever LeBron ends up going, players go with him. And he's had that. He's had that where he goes to Miami. He's got guys like Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, Shane Battier. He's got a lot of players. He then goes back to Cleveland, which I thought was the worst move. But you get Kevin Love, you get Kyrie Irving, and you get a lot of different players. Then you go to Los Angeles, and you've got Anthony Davis. You've got Kyle Kuzma. You've got a lot of these guys. So wherever he goes, those players are going to end up following him. Who wouldn't want to end up playing with LeBron, to be honest? It's much like how you look at Tampa Bay. Who wouldn't want to play with Tom Brady? I mean, you're talking about the GOAT, 6 Super Bowl championships. And he's playing behind center in South Beach. And I look at this and 2 things. One, on the Tampa Bay side, this is real good for Tampa Bay. I think they've got a power style running back in Leonard Fournette that I think is capable of moving the football. I mean, I've never said anything bad about Fournette at all. I just think that the organization that he was under was I just think the organization that he was under was such a mess, and it still is a mess. And I don't think they're ever going to clean up their mess. They're just going to leave this thing. They're just going to leave this thing rotting away. I mean, this is that's dead man's paradise. When I look at Jacksonville's organization, they're not going to really fix up their mess. But in Tampa Bay's situation, I think it's great. And you've got Ronald Jones II, who's going to serve as that running and catching running back. And then you got Keyshawn Vaughn, who I think is going to fit in well with this running back system. Tampa Bay is really making certain things happen, but they do have a lot of depth if you think about it. I'm not looking at it as a team that could potentially win the Super Bowl, but I do believe that this is a team that is willing to grind out every game in their schedule, especially in the NFC, where you have a conference full of grinders. I mean, you got the Saints, you've got the Seahawks, you've got the 49ers, you've got all these teams in the NFC that are willing to grind it out, and they are willing to make big impacts. So I think this is a good thing for Tampa Bay. And when I look at Jacksonville, they're an absolute mess. The ownership doesn't truly invest in their football team. They mostly invest a lot more on wrestling. I'll be honest. And I do see up on the comments, I got one of my colleagues talking about Roman Reigns. Oh, my Lord. I know a lot of people ranting and raved about it. That was a lot of fun. Funny reactions, but it was a lot of fun. But they're invested in wrestling. That's what they're invested in most of the time. They're not invested in this organization. They don't even care too much about some of their players. I mean, they've already gotten rid of majority of the quote-unquote Saxonville from 2017. They're all gone. Calais Campbell's in Baltimore. Yannick Ngakoue is in Minnesota. Jalen Ramsey is in LA. And then you got AJ Bouye in Denver. They're all gone. Done. It's over. You were a one-hit wonder in 2017 until New England eliminated you in the playoffs, and then that was the end of it. That's it. Now, they obviously are in the driver's seats for tanking for Trevor Lawrence, but even I don't think that that's going to work out very, very well. But yeah, you kind of already understand the story about Jacksonville, to be honest. I'm going to take a quick break real fast. But when I come back, we got a lot more to really look forward to. I mean, playoffs now, they're shifting in toward the championship series, especially in the Stanley Cup playoffs. We're getting into the conference championships. The NBA has really looked impressive throughout this second round of the playoffs, and we've already gotten that started, but this is going to be interesting. When I come back, we're going to talk a little bit more on Major League Baseball, because I think that this is going to be very, very interesting. There are a couple of teams, and I'm going to have that best for last for the postseason. They haven't announced all these teams, but they do have a picture of what the postseason could potentially look like. I'm going to break that down for best and worst teams going in if the postseason was to start tomorrow. You don't want to end up missing that Snake Sports Talk Show. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. If you're just tuning in here to the Snake Sports Talk Show, very, very happy and glad that you guys could all be here. Thank you so much to everybody commenting in the chats as well. Like I said, like and subscribe to the Spotlight Sports Network as well. You're home of the Snake Sports Talk Show, and hit the bell button for all of your latest notifications on news and shows from your favorite network as well. We really do appreciate the love and support that you guys give out on a daily basis. One thing that I'll end with this first hour is, again, I looked at that Deshaun Watson deal, and I'm telling you, I just I still think it's good for Deshaun Watson, because much like, I look at some of these quarterbacks in this league, much like Aaron Rodgers, where he's getting every penny for his buck, Matthew Stafford as well, and Russell Wilson. Matthew Stafford already has suffered a lot of back injuries that in his contract, he's got guaranteed money. And we talked about this. Not too long ago. And we'll also have it posted, is the NFC North Division predictions as well on the network. You guys don't want to end up missing that. So much fun. We had lots to talk about on all four teams in that division. But it's interesting. But Matthew Stafford is already coming into his career where he's had 2 back injuries that I just don't think that he's really stable enough. And I think he's coming to the point where in his career, it's closing in on him fast. But he does have the guaranteed money to really ensure. And I look at it this way. I feel like it's a potential retirement money. The fact that he gets all of the money guaranteed, and hey, whatever he does with it afterward, that's all up to him. And I think that it's going to be very interesting to see, very interesting to watch. But I do hope that Houston really fixed this up for Deshaun Watson. I love watching Deshaun. I really, really do. They just cannot afford to have a Andrew Luck 2.0. And again, I say this very respectfully because I loved watching Andrew Luck in Indianapolis. I think he was one of the best. He was one of the best quarterback prospects as well in the NFL. But this is, this is going to be interesting to see. But I am very happy for Deshaun Watson, and I do believe that he deserves every penny of that contract. And we'll see exactly what happens with exactly what happens with the Texans from here on out, especially with their offensive line. All right, folks, let's get started on hour number 2. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome here. Hour 2 of the Snake Sports Talk Show. We are live in Las Vegas in the 702. Like me on Facebook, follow me on Twitter and Instagram, on all social media platforms. I post up on it daily as well. Follow the YouTube channels of the Spotlight Sports Network, your home of the Snake Sports Talk Show, and also the Snake Sports Talk Show channel as well. And also, follow us on Spotify, Spotlight Sports Network podcast. We now have the podcast up and running. For a lot of us who couldn't even make it to the show, watching it, but we do have an audio clip of it, and we'll make sure that we upload it as well onto the network. You can catch that on the Spotlight Sports Network podcast on Spotify. And also, We officially have a website launched. We launched it last night. You can catch all of the great articles from all of your favorite colleagues on the network. See what they got to say on so many different sports topics. And also, you can grab, like, you guys love each and every single show. I'll tell you, there's this show in particular, the Snake Sports Talk Show. There's the 7,200 seconds of sports talk show. There's lots of them on the Spotlight Sports Network. You can grab their merchandise as well on the website and rep all of your favorite shows, rep all of your favorite colleagues, and rep the network as a whole. Go to spotlightsportsnetwork.com, pick up your merchandise, and even check out all the articles today. Man, we have such a stacked show. I was very excited to be here today and really just kind of break this all down with you guys, all throughout this weekend. And like I said, we've got Game 7 of the Stanley Cup playoffs between the New York Islanders and the Philadelphia Flyers, and it is determined who will win and who will move on to the Eastern Conference Final and take on the Tampa Bay Lightning. We've already got the Western Conference set up to where it's the Dallas Stars and the Vegas Golden Knights. I can't wait for that. Vegas is going absolutely nuts up to this point. So I'm very excited about what that series is going to hold. And of course, we got a couple of NBA action as well. And this is something where I'm going to end up shifting over toward the NBA for a good brief few minutes, because I already had talked about Miami, and I talked about just how impactful Jimmy Butler really has been to this young Heat team. I don't think people truly realize it, but Jimmy Butler truly has elevated his game, and he's definitely a one-of-a-kind type talent. I mean, amongst a lot of these players, like amongst all these players, because it's a star-driven league. I mean, you have LeBron and Anthony Davis with the Lakers. You have Kawhi and Paul George with the Clippers. You've got Luka and Kristaps Porzingis in Dallas. You have a lot of these real good tandems in all the leagues. Now, I will say this, that Jimmy Butler is one gigantic catalyst for this Miami franchise. And you have to think about it. I've said this over and over again. But Eric Spoelstra is a real good coach. I don't think he is as impactful as a Greg Popovich. I don't think that he has the type of wit and grit as a Phil Jackson. But Eric Spoelstra is a real good coach. He'll make plays happen. You have to think about, out of all the years that LeBron James has had coaches on his side, I think Eric Spoelstra, to be honest, was one that truly supported LeBron, but is also one that is really shaped up his coaching method and how he really controls things on the floor, how he really dictates it. And you're seeing that, you're witnessing that after 6 years without LeBron. This is how Miami has shaped themselves. And this is a very interesting, I think this is also a very exciting team. And Jimmy Butler's he's really proving to the NBA world why I think he is a one-of-a-kind type talent. I mean, the guy shoots buckets. He makes impactful plays. And I'll be honest with you, I think he elevates this young team very, very well. You have to think about who he's got around him. Bam Adebayo, who I think is a really good, impactful center, really can make a lot of things happen. Rebounds, second chance shots, block shots, etc. Kendrick Nunn, the rookie, he's really making some certain things happen. And then there are a bunch of shooters. Here's what's interesting. You've got one undrafted shooter that he's shooting at least 40% on the three-point line. And that's pretty impactful. And so when I look at this entire team from top to bottom on their roster, I think Miami is very interesting. And they've got Milwaukee with their backs against the wall. Giannis, Chris Middleton, so many others on this team. And it's not looking good for Milwaukee whatsoever. Then I look at a bunch of these other teams. Toronto, I don't know what's going to happen with them. But They did a lot of things. They did a lot of things real well, but it's gotten them to this point that Boston, you can already tell. Brad Stevens, he's a really good coach. He's really shifted this team to where it's getting the best out of Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum and so many young players on this Boston roster. And it's really started to pan out, and it's really started to show for itself. But this is a really exciting NBA playoffs. I'll be totally honest with you on that. This has been a really exciting NBA playoffs, and I think it's only going to get better from here. The more deeper that we get to, till we get to the conference finals, I think this is going to be very exciting. I think it's going to be very, very exciting. So, just to giving a taste, we'll shift over to the NFL. But we talked about the NFC North divisions. And I've said this. I think the NFC North, truthfully, out of every team in the NFC, the North, they're going to have to eventually make some changes in this division. And who's represented in the North? The Detroit Lions, the Green Bay Packers, the Minnesota Vikings, and the Chicago Bears. They need to make some important changes. And Chicago, I think, is making the changes they need to make it happen in their organization. And they just announced as well that Mitch Trubisky is set to be their everyday starter for this roster. Am I surprised of it? No. Because since being drafted and coming into the scene, I'll be honest, Mitch Trubisky really is not half bad of a quarterback. If I look at a lot of all these quarterbacks in the league, I don't know what to think of Gardner Minshew. I don't know what to think about Derek Carr. I don't even know what to think about with a lot of these other quarterbacks. Again, Deshaun Watson, can he stay healthy? Can Houston ensure that him an offensive line to keep him on the field? There are lots of teams with their quarterbacks I'm a little bit uncertain about. Mitch Trubisky, this is a step-up year for him. He really has to get it going for the Chicago Bears. Because you cannot, and this is where I elaborate this way. When you think about it from a business standpoint, you can't initially have the workers on your staff have most of them do 80% of the work and you're only doing 20. This defense has really been putting in 80% of the work. That's Khalil Mack. That's Akeem Hicks. That's now they bring in Robert Quinn, the sack leader from last year in Dallas. They bring in a lot of these guys. And the defense I'm not worried about because even though that I do think there are some questions on the secondary side of things, but I'm not so much worried about the defense. I think the defense is really, really good. I think they can shut down any offenses, but it just depends on what their gameplay is going to be like. But most of the time, I look at the offensive side of the football. Mitch Trubisky had a bad year. We know that. But then you also have to look at it from one other end. I mean, Terry Cohen, everybody ranted and raved about him. And I think he just needs to go back to his regular positioning with as far as just being an option, running and catching type running back. That's the only way really to make this offense work. And Matt Nagy is trying to piece out the puzzles to this offense and really trying to make it work. You have to admit, Matt Nagy did get this team into the playoffs. He got him into the playoffs once. And of course, obviously the double doink. We all know about that scenario. But Chicago, to really make themselves a very impactful team, this offense has to get going. You got Allen Robinson as your wide receiver. He's really impactful. I think he's a really, really, really good talent. Amongst all of these superstar wide receivers that we have in the NFL, I think Allen Robinson's really lived up to his expectation in Chicago. And I think it's Chicago's type of wide receiver. I'll be honest with that. But then I also look at the Minnesota Vikings and why people are lowballing the Vikings. I have them going 10-6 and winning the NFC North. My reasons of this is it's not all on Kirk Cousins. Okay. They addressed a lot of things. They traded away Stephon Diggs. They get a first-round pick, and they used that first-round pick on Justin Jefferson, the LSU wide receiver, which I said that was a really good draft pick by Minnesota. Honestly, really, really good wide receiver. I think he'll be very impactful next to Adam Thielen in the offensive side of the football. Dalvin Cook finally listened exactly to a point that I was making. Don't hold out. Play one more year. Show that you can be consistent and you can also be healthy. And then we'll come back to the roundtable and we'll start talking about contract negotiations. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about an extension. But as of right now, you have to think about Dalvin Cook all throughout the years. Rookie year, he missed out because of an ACL tear. He comes back last year, 13 games. I thought he was very impactful, but it still was not enough for me to really, if I was in the general manager's position, it's not enough for me to guarantee that, hey, a contract extension for a guy like Dalvin Cook is a guarantee. I don't believe that. And which is why a lot of fans understand and they're seeing the points about why running backs don't get a whole lot of love in the NFL. It used 2 years ago, but you have to think about the timeline and the era that we were in football. Running backs were a big thing. Nowadays, if you've got the coach and you've got the quarterback and you've got the offensive line, the weapons will come and go. Wide receivers, running backs, tight ends, they all come and go. And the talent is getting bigger and bigger every year. It's true. And Minnesota, the only concern that I have is their defensive secondary play. Now, they did address their safety issue, and they got Jeff Gladney, who I think is going to be a real good, impactful player. I think he brings a lot to the table. But they did acquire Yannick Ngakoue. With him and Daniel Hunter, that's going to be a hell of a pass rush in the North. And they still got Harrison Smith. They let only Xavier Rhodes and a couple of guys leave. Linval Joseph now joins with the Chargers. So there are a lot of things that they have to readjust. But I see Minnesota going 10-6. And I know it's going to burst a lot of Green Bay fans' bubbles, but I've said this about Green Bay. I think Green Bay is going to end up going 8-8, possibly 9-7. A lot of people were surprised. A lot of people were shocked. But let me give you my piece of the pie on this. Because a lot of this has to do with what is Aaron Rodgers going to prepare for next year. Okay, and a lot of people said the same things over and over again. Aaron Rodgers doesn't have help. Aaron Rodgers doesn't have support. He doesn't have this. He doesn't have that. Yeah, but here's the other thing. The last 2 seasons with Aaron Rodgers, he's led the league in throwaways. He's led the league in throwaways. And what does that initially tell you about Aaron Rodgers? Parts of his game, he's trying to protect his legacy, that quarterback passer rating. He's trying to protect that at all costs. Not throw any picks, not make any mistakes, but he's a gunslinging quarterback, much like Brett Favre. Brett Favre could care less about where the football was thrown to. He was a gunslinger. He was a gunslinger for a quarterback. It didn't matter exactly where the football landed as long as it landed in the hands of his wide receivers. He wasn't afraid of deep ball passes. Aaron Rodgers, when we've seen him, he didn't seem afraid of throwing deep ball passes. Now, maybe the collarbone might have changed things. It may have. But at the end of the day, there's some limitations up to this point about Aaron Rodgers' game. Whether it's the collarbone or however the playbook is set. But there's just too many mixed emotions when I look at Green Bay. And Green Bay doesn't really attract a lot of free agents on the market. They really don't. They lost a couple of good pieces. They lost Blake Martinez in their linebacking core. And, they lost a couple of their secondaries. So it's going to be interesting to see how Green Bay really favors out. But I feel like 8-8, 9-7, I feel like sounds fair enough. Chicago, I think, might go 8-8, possibly 9-7 if they make this right. Or maybe they'll get one more win and they'll be 10-6. Who knows? And then, look, don't even get me started on Detroit. I mean, I've got Detroit going 6-10, maybe 7-9. But Detroit has a lot of work to do. And that is the offensive line needs to be reshaped because at this point, tick-tock is happening with Matthew Stafford. He's already taken a bunch of blows. He has already hurt himself enough on his back. And not to mention, too, we've got another running back in this organization. Out of hundreds of running backs that they've already gone through over the years since, I don't know, 2010, that's about it. And so hopefully DeAndre Swift will be an interesting type talent coming into this type of organization who truly needs help. But that's the way that I look at it. Minnesota 10-6, Chicago or Green Bay 8-8, possibly 9-7. And then you've got Detroit at the bottom at 6-10, 7-9. That's the way that I look at it. And that NFC North, because at this point you're in a conference full of grinders, and there are a bunch of teams out there who are willing to try to make it into the playoffs. That's the Saints, that's the Bucks, that's the Niners, that's the Seahawks. Hell, even the Rams are trying to push themselves into playoff contention. There are so many teams in the NFC that I'll argue they're all trying to push in for playoff hopes. But when I look at that NFC North, there's only one team that I think pushes for the playoffs, and I believe that that's Minnesota. But this is where everybody in the NFC North really needs to get their stuff together, and I truly think they need to shape up for the future. Really, really do, especially when it comes to Green Bay. I think Green Bay has repeated history over and over again with his organization, and it's just become obvious. It's not even a surprise. Not even a surprise. The fact that, again, when Brett Favre was on the scene, I mean, they drafted a kid out of NorCal in Cal Berkeley and named Aaron Rodgers. And then they come up this year, Aaron Rodgers is 36, and they drafted a kid out of Utah State named Jordan Love. They traded up to get him. And a lot of people are complaining of the fact that he's not doing well in practice, well in those reps. But I've said this. Like Aaron Rodgers, if you all remember exactly how he came in, it didn't look that great. He was studying the playbook. He was studying this and that. Both Aaron Rodgers and Jordan Love have one thing in common. They both have raw talent. They're going to need a lot of adjustments. They're going to need this and that. And a lot of people need to look back, go back to junior year at Utah State for Jordan Love. He was very impactful. Ran out of the pocket, has a strong arm, somebody that I think could very much really adjust his game and adjust his game for the better. But in this meantime, I don't anticipate Jordan Love coming in that fast. I really don't. He just has raw talent. He's got a lot to learn. And especially in this times of uncertainty with no preseasons, but you just have first team rep practices, it's going to be interesting to see how that shapes up. Going to take a quick break here in a moment, but when I come back, I'll be talking a little bit more on what's to come here in sports. You don't want to end up missing that Snake Sports Talk Show. Alrighty, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you're just coming in here to the Snake Sports Talk Show, welcome. We really do appreciate you guys stopping by. Like I said, if you haven't already, subscribe to the home of the Snake Sports Talk Show. That is the Spotlight Sports Network YouTube channel page. Hit the bell button, hit the like button, and get all of the notifications on all of your favorite shows, and also news and analysis on everything happening on all sports. Really do appreciate you guys, and we really do appreciate the love and support you guys give daily. So there are lots of things that I look forward to every year. You know what I'm looking forward to mostly through, toward this 2020 year? I'm looking forward for it to be a little bit of cooler weather, somewhere around 70, 75 degrees. I'm also looking forward to it, honestly, because next month is going to be October. I'm looking forward to October season coming up. But the other thing that I'm looking forward to is the NFL season. I think it's going to be really interesting. Lots and lots of different stories, lots and lots of different moves. I mean, we've covered it all throughout free agency, throughout the draft. This is going to be very, very interesting. I can't wait for the season to start. And there have been a couple of cuts that have happened in every team. Some of them that I thought, well, maybe it needed to be reasonable. Some of them, not exactly sure why. But there is one thing that I do want to end up talking about. Because this week, the LA Chargers had announced that Derwin James is going to end up missing 6 to 8 months with a meniscus tear on his knee. And I know it's a crushing blow for the Chargers. I really, really do. I do think it's hard, and I do think that it's tough. Because, of course, the Chargers, they are really setting themselves up for one thing. They want to be competitive in this league. They want to be a part of this league. This team has been to the Super Bowl once in their franchise history. This was formerly in San Diego. They want to be competitive. Out of all the teams that I'm looking at currently in the NFL, Kansas City, San Francisco, Seattle, Indianapolis, even Denver, lots and lots of these other teams, they're all shaping themselves to be competitive. That's what's exciting about this year, because I'm getting a taste of almost every team except for maybe 4 teams that I know they're in rebuild mode. That's Detroit, Jacksonville, and so on and so forth. That's it. But out of all of them, there are no excuses this year. And it's exciting of how this year is really going to pan out for every NFL team. When I look at the Chargers, they have a bunch of issues. They've had a bunch of issues, but they fixed them. The offensive line has never looked healthier than it has in years, and I'm excited about that. The defense, shutdown defense, they picked up a lot of real good, important pieces, Linval Joseph, Chris Harris. And then they ended up picking up a bunch of real good, impactful players out of the draft. I mean, Justin Herbert, is the future of this franchise. Kenneth Murray, they fixed their linebacking problem because Denzel Perryman couldn't even stay healthy at all. And then they go and pick up a bunch of wide receivers and a bunch of real good defensive secondaries. Alohi Gilman. So this will be interesting how this team really shapes up. But I looked at it from this standpoint, and after hearing about Derwin James, yes, it is a crushing blow. Not even going to lie. But I do think all is not lost for the Chargers this year. Lots of people have come up to me and say, well, Jake, how are you going to, what are your thoughts now on the Chargers? You said they were going 11-5. Yes, I did. Yes, I did say. I'm still confident in that. People will laugh. People will roll their eyes. And people will think, oh, come on. Be reasonable. Oh, no, I am. Because this team really is stacked in the defensive front line, to the linebacking core, and to the secondaries. This is probably one of the best top 10 defenses I look at in the NFL. The other thing, the offensive line looks healthy. They got real good pieces. Trey Turner, Brian Bulaga, and they have a bunch of other good offensive linemen in their core. It's much better. And then Melvin Gordon goes to Denver. That's not a problem. Austin Eckler is going to take more of the reps, and Josh Kelly, I think, is going to be the sleeper on this offense. I think he's going to be really, really impactful. I mean that. But if I had to break down a few things, I would have broke down who I think that the Chargers should pursue if in case they need a secondary safety out there. Because one, they're already talking about Jaleel Addae. I think Jaleel Addae could really fit for this team. He only spent 1 year in Houston. And I thought he was really, really good. Shut down defensive back. Had a much better improved season last year, despite all of Houston's issues. But he was very impactful in that. And I think, truthfully, if you give him a reasonable contract to come back to the Chargers, I think it'll be one that they're not going to keep for very long, at least until Derwin James is 110% healthy, of course. But they do have some real good, impactful players. Chris Harris, Desmond King, Casey Hayward, Mike Davis. I mean, it's a good depth in the secondary. But I think bringing Jaleel Addae in could help just to at least, serve as the bandage, on this team. I really, truly think that would work. And then my other option, and he recently got cut by the Las Vegas Raiders earlier. That is Demarius Randall. I think Demarius Randall is a very interesting player. I think he's real good when it comes to secondary play. So I truly think that Demarius Randall really could do some help for the Chargers. Shut him down, be a shutdown corner or shutdown safety. And I think he really can help this team in every way. I've seen what he's done, over the years, whether he's been in the Raiders or he's been with the Cleveland Browns or even being with the Green Bay Packers. I think he's a real good shutdown safety. And that's specifically what the Chargers are looking for. They are not looking to be lowballed at all this year. They are not looking to be lowballed, second-guessed, or criticized or doubted. I say that, and I'm not just bringing out my fandom, but I'm being reasonable, and I'm reasonable with every team in the NFL, every team in sports. Something that I see, I'm going to end up talking about it. But I truly do think that the Chargers really do have good pieces. And it's only a matter of time until the season starts. This is why that I said don't count them out. Don't count them out. I still have them going 11-5. Because at the end of the day, this is not a panicky moment. The fact that they lose Derwin James for the year. I understand it's a crushing blow for the Chargers. I understand that. But this is also, too, where it's showing the capabilities of what this defense is all about. And I do think that they're going to shape this well. So it will be interesting. And by the way, you know what I can't wait for, too? Either when this season starts up, if we do have a season, I can't wait for my prime predictions. So people that are not known for that on this show, prime predictions that I do every single year, I will have prime predictions of all games in the NFL. And I'll give you exactly my thoughts. I'll give you exactly all of the breakdowns and even the bet lines. The bet lines, who I think is a real good guarantee, the point spreads, all sorts of that. I can't even wait for that to start because last year I actually was very, very impressive. In last year's prime predictions, I thought it was fun, and I can't wait to do that more. I know I'll definitely have a talk with the network as well and the colleagues, seeing exactly how we'll make that happen. But again, I like it. I love doing stuff like that. So time now for the hot press. So, of course, everybody is ranting and raving about the latest contract deal between the Houston Texans and quarterback Deshaun Watson. So both of them have agreed to a 4-year, $160 million extension. That also guarantees he is set to later signing a $177.54 million with nearly $111 million guarantee. And he's trailing at least quarterback Patrick Mahomes, who signed that 12-year contract that was the largest in history. So Watson is going to make about $39 million per year. So, and I look at this, and I think that this is probably the best insurance policy for Deshaun Watson, because if anything was to happen to him in his career, because you have to think about it, over the years, he's had an ACL tear, he's had numerous injuries, he's been sacked multiple times, he's been tackled over 200 times in a season, all because they can't even get their offensive line right. And that's something Houston is really sitting on the hot seat for. And this is not going to be easy for the Houston Texans, and they really have to shape this up. And you know what's interesting? You know who also is like looking at this type of contract? Oh yeah, a Dak Prescott. As usual, Dak Prescott is looking at this contract saying, so Deshaun Watson's getting $39 million a year. I'm only getting guaranteed this amount of money. But again, uncertainties with the Cowboys, uncertainties everywhere. And this is where Dak Prescott really has to prove himself that he is more than just a quarterback. He's special. Will we see that? I don't know. And it's going to be interesting to see how the season will pan out. I have Dallas going 8-8, to be honest. But going back to Houston, this is really good for Deshaun Watson. You pay him every penny. You pay him every penny. I said this about Russell Wilson when it came to Seattle, because Russell is the franchise. He truly is the franchise. And wherever this franchise goes, Russell Wilson's going to take them there, however far and however wide that he can get them to. And that's what I truly think about when it comes to Deshaun Watson. I think he's truly the one holding this franchise, and the only thing that I can hope for is Bill O'Brien does this right, but I still think they need a general manager in that organization. So, also Jadeveon Clowney, as we're still on in the NFL. So Jadeveon Clowney ended up firing his agent, Bus Cook, and now plans to work with Kennard McGuire, and is trying to look for a destination somewhere just before the season starts. And Jadeveon Clowney, still a free agent, still have yet to be signed. And Clowney, from what I've seen so far, they did end up announcing that he ended up meeting with the New Orleans Saints, possibly for a practice, whatnot. But he's looking for an asking price of at least $21 million per season. 21. I don't know how this is going to end up. I truly don't think this is going to end up. What's going on in the Dome? I definitely got to talk to you guys later on for sure. Got to have you up on the show. But looking at Jadeveon Clowney, I mean, I think he's a really good pass rusher. But if you have to look at him over the years between Seattle and Houston, there are some limitations to his defensive game. I'll be honest. I just don't think, and I look at this from an honest standpoint with him, I don't know if 21 is really the one to cut it. I think 19, maybe 18 million. But if Jadeveon Clowney don't play this year, that's going to be tough. That's going to be tough. But I do think he might serve as a secondary option if one of the pass rushers in the league goes down. And I think Jadeveon Clowney could fit the bill. But at the end of the day, $21 million a year for a defensive pass rusher, just depending on the length of the contract. I mean, if it were me, I would have given at least Jadeveon Clowney 3 years. 3 years on that contract deal. But I would not have paid him that much. I probably would have paid him at least 19. And that's because I don't know the production that I may get from Jadeveon Clowney, let alone can I trust him to be healthy? Can I trust him in certain situations in the pass rush? And that is something that is a big question for him on the long run. And hopefully he takes a reasonable contract, and that's where I think that he stands from there. So the Miami Dolphins, of course, they got their quarterback tandem set. It's going to be Ryan Fitzpatrick and Tua Tagovailoa. But they did announce earlier that the Miami Dolphins ended up releasing Josh Rosen instead of working out a trade. So Rosen now is on the free agent market and has yet to be signed by a different team. But right now, Josh Rosen's stock is going down. His stock is going down. He spent 1 year with the Miami Dolphins. Had one passing touchdown and 5 picks, and so the stock market for a guy like Rosen has really kind of dropped down. Now, it hasn't dropped down massively only because he's only 23 years old. He's still in the prime of his youth. But this is something that Josh Rosen, and I looked at it from the beginning. I defended Josh Rosen. I defended him at the time in Arizona because I felt like if Arizona truly was working toward, shifting their quarterback position, not to mention shaping their offensive line, which I still think they need to do anyway, even when they got Kyler Murray. I know Kyler Murray can run out of the pocket, but still, that offensive line I don't trust. And the fact that if anything happened to Kyler Murray, then I automatically look at that offensive line. That's the only way that I look at it from certain NFL teams. But as far as Josh Rosen goes, I defended him at the time when he ended up getting traded out after drafting Kyler Murray, goes to Miami, and I thought this would have been a fresh new fit for him. But I was wrong. And there's just parts of it I think Josh Rosen really needs to elevate his game much, much better. And this is something that, the Dolphins, they've already have it set. They already have this posted up where Tua is their future. And Miami looks like a very interesting team. They look like a very interesting team. I think it's going to be a fun team in Miami, but I think they've got the cards shaped up. But as far as for Josh Rosen, he may look to be a backup somewhere. Maybe, I'll be honest, maybe Cincinnati, or maybe even, some of the teams that are moving away from their quarterbacks. I wouldn't even be surprised if he ended up taking a backup role in Green Bay or in a lot of these other teams that are, they got quarterbacks that are just getting old. Or unless, actually, if you bring him into Tampa Bay, have him learn from the GOAT. Have him learn from Tom Brady. Maybe that might actually shift a little bit of his game. Wouldn't be a bad idea, but I don't think his stock is going to drop down that low. He's 23 years old. He's still got a lot to learn, but he's got to step up his game somehow, some way. If he really wants to cut it out of this league, again, there was just twists and turns since being drafted, and it hasn't really looked good for him since. Also, too, don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, we've got fight night as well tonight, and that is Alistair Overeem that is going to be fighting as well. You guys can definitely check that out tonight on ESPN Plus. Can't wait for that. That was your hot press. So, I talked an awful lot about just, I think I pretty much covered a lot of things. I covered hockey. I covered the NFL, because the NFL, we're only a week away from the season, and I'm excited for it. I'm really excited for what the season's going to bring. I'm not sure how they're going to handle this whole thing, because, again, we don't have preseason, let alone do we even have a guaranteed timetable or anything like that. But the only thing that I know that is a guarantee, they're going to have tests on a daily, day in and day out. So I'm really happy of the fact that the NFL was able to pull that off. The other thing is all these teams and all their stories coming into this season. There's no excuses whatsoever. And I've already seen all these quarterbacks get nabbed starters, and I've already seen at least a bunch of cuts to where they fit up their roster limit. And it seems like every team is set and ready to go. So it will be interesting how this season is going to pan out. But I think at the end of the day, if we do have an NFL season, this one, I think you got to make the best of it. You got to make the best of this NFL season. This is what the fans want. This is what the fans deserve, even at this time of uncertainty. And I think NFL is absolutely king for it. They're going to make this happen one way or the other. It's not going to be easy. I think it's going to be a tough challenge. But I do hope that the players stay safe and healthy. And let's have fun this season. Okay. Again, I understand with everything that's going on in everyday life, politics, whatnot, all that stuff. I understand. But at the same time, when sports is going on, this is the essence that pulls us away from all the craziness, reshapes our mind, reshapes our focus. So I can't wait for the NFL season to start. Let's have a season. Let's have fun. And let's not worry about certain stuff. Let's not worry too subtly about certain stuff. So when I come back, I'm going to have my best for last. And this is where I'm going to end up talking about the Major League Baseball postseason picture if the postseason was ready to start. And I'm going to give my breakdown on all these teams that so far of what they look like. You don't want to end up missing that on the Snake Sports Talk Show. Alrighty, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in. And I really do appreciate you guys hanging out with me here today on a beautiful Saturday. I hope you guys are all safe and healthy, and I hope you guys have a great weekend ahead. Like I said before, like me on Facebook, follow me on Twitter and Instagram, all social media platforms, to keep ahead with the show for all of my loyal fans up out there. Also, subscribe to the home of the Snake Sports Talk Show. That is the Spotlight Sports Network. Hit the bell button, hit the like button as well for all the notifications for more of me, all future shows, and a couple of other breaking news as well around in the league. And also follow the Spotify account under the Spotlight Sports Network podcast. We'll have all of our live streams audio played for those who couldn't make it to the live stream. That's okay. We got you covered. We'll have every bit of audio on Spotify as well. You guys can check that out. And also, for those who are diehard fans of the Snake Sports Talk Show, want more of me, we've launched our website last night as well, and it is officially out now. We've got everything. We've got articles. We've got a bunch of analysis. We have a bunch of things to look forward to. And also, we've got merchandise for all of your favorite shows, of all of your favorite colleagues, and all of your favorite stuff from the network. So go online to www.spotlightsportsnetwork.com. Check out all the merchandise. Check out all of the articles. You guys are really going to love it. I'm telling you, I am super excited to finally announce the launching of the website. This is great stuff. This is truly like months in the making. With all of this, now this is something that had started in 2017, but I am very proud and I am very blessed to be a part of a really great network. And I'm very, very, I'm very excited for what this year is really going to finish off on. We're going to finish this year off very, very strong. But this is going to be a lot of fun. So I'm looking into my best for last here today. And just to end up on the show, talking about Major League Baseball. Now, there have been a bunch of teams that have been interesting surprises, but, shortened season, I'm not too surprised because I do believe that a lot of teams have showed their expressions of urgency when it comes to making it into the postseason and making it into the playoffs. And this year is really going to be interesting. I'll have an article on this as well on the website. But I'm talking more of, I just feel like that this year's postseason and this year's championship in Major League Baseball, I truly don't think a lot of people and a lot of fans are going to care that much because think about it. Shortened season, 60 games. It would be different if we had 102 of those games involved. Because that's how baseball is. It's a long season, 162 games a year. Now, because of the pandemic hit, shorten the season up, 60 games. I just don't truly think it's going to have the same meaning. And I'll be honest, I don't think it's going to have the same meaning as what's currently going on. Like the Stanley Cup playoffs. I think that's going to matter more because they were already closing their season and they were going to be ready for the playoffs anyway. Same with the NBA. NBA, they had a short restart and they reseeded, and then they ended up playing in the playoffs. And that's one that I think matters a lot more. But when I look at baseball, I truly don't think that the World Series champion is really going to matter all that much because Major League Baseball got a massive break. But that was because of all of the tone deafness. That's because of all the uncertainties and everything else. And in the NFL, I hope that the NFL pans out very, very well because, again, it's the top of the totem pole when we look at all things sports. It's the top of the totem pole. So I really do think I really do hope that it really works out well. So looking at all these teams, so looking at into the American League, what I look at in this picture, so from 1 through 8, I have the Tampa Bay Rays, the Oakland Athletics, the Cleveland Indians, the Chicago White Sox, the Houston Astros, the New York Yankees, the Minnesota Twins, and the Toronto Blue Jays. Those are the teams that I'm looking at here in the American League side of things. I think it's going to be interesting. On the National League, from 1 through 8, you have the Los Angeles Dodgers, the Chicago Cubs, the Atlanta Braves, the San Diego Padres, the Philadelphia Phillies, the St. Louis Cardinals, the Miami Marlins, and the Colorado Rockies. So These are the current standings as of right now if the postseason was to start. So I'm going to dig into that. And this is what I'll have for my best for last. So I'll have it all the way down to the notch. So let's start with the 1 through 8s. And I'll start with the Tampa Bay Rays and the Toronto Blue Jays. So here's one thing I will say about the Tampa Bay Rays. Not only did they get a break this season, but if you actually paid close attention to what this team is very much capable of, this team, for whatever reason, when it comes to their pitching staff, I mean, they are stellar. The pitching coach, the pitching staff as a whole, from the rotation to the bullpen. I mean, this is a team last year who picked up where they left off. They were one of the top best bullpen arms in Major League Baseball. And they've really played well in situational games. So, and also, too, I mean, their bats are really interesting. They're more of a team that really, they shoot for more for getting guys on base and also driving in runs any way that they can. Now, that's not always like, home run balls, but that's pretty much giving their team padded leads. And that's what the Tampa Bay Rays, that's really what's been their MO this year. Regardless of a shortened season, they've actually looked really impressive. And the team they face against, the Toronto Blue Jays. Listen, I do like Toronto. I think they've got a lot of really good young players coming up. Bo Bichette, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., and also Kevin Biggio. But I do think that there still is some adjustments to their game. I still think that they need to bolster up their bullpen. I still think that they really need to solidify their rotation. But I do think that some of their offensive bats are very interesting. Outside of those three, I mean, Teoscar Hernandez has been interesting. Lourdes Gurriel Jr., I think, is a real good power bat. Somebody that's very impactful in the middle of the lineup. But if I had to go with the series, I'd have to go with the Tampa Bay Rays to beating the Blue Jays in this game. I think they'll beat them. I'm not sure exactly how that they'll set this up, but I do think the Tampa Bay Rays will beat the Toronto Blue Jays. I just think that the pitching matchup, it's going to be too much for Toronto at that point, and Tampa's got the upper hand when it comes to their bullpen. On the other side, you've got the Dodgers and the Rockies. Now, the last few times that these guys have met, the Dodgers right now are the hottest team in baseball with both pitching and offense. Offense, I don't have a problem with. I mean, you've got Cody Bellinger, Max Muncy, Jock Peterson, Mookie Betts right now. And Mookie Betts, again, I'm going to take back what I said. I thought this contract was going to be an Andrew Jones 2.0, but I'm wrong. And he's really put the money where my mouth is. And I am fine with that. And I mean, Mookie Betts has really looked good. And LA, they're on a mission. They want to win the World Series. They want to win it badly. They haven't won since 1988. And the fact that this team is on a mission, they don't want to end up getting upset to where they lost back-to-back World Series. They've gotten into the playoffs multiple times since 2013, and they don't do anything with it. That would be a sheer disappointment for the Dodgers. And so I think they're going to end up winning the series against Colorado. Colorado, to be honest, they have real good power bats, including Nolan Arenado. But outside of Kyle Freeland, I don't trust anybody in their rotation. I really don't. And their bullpen is hit or miss. It's not even to the point where I trust most of their arms. I trust most of the situational play. I don't think Colorado's going to make it through that easily. I think it's going to be tough for them. So I have the Rays and the Dodgers moving on. Chicago and Houston. So I said this about the Chicago White Sox. I thought this team is really going to do well because I don't think they're going to make a huge impact. But the only reason why is because they're shifting into the youth movement. They got young arms in their rotation. They've got young bats in their lineup. Luis Robert, Jose Abreu, Eloy Jimenez, Yohan Moncada. This team's really shaped themselves up offensively. And I love it. I had Yohan Moncada in my fantasy roster last year for baseball, and he really impacted himself. But of course, you are talking about a Houston team that knows how to sneak their way in through the playoffs. They know how to sneak their way in. And without And I think that without the leverage that they had, it really has left them exposed. And that's where a lot of the pressure is going to come from for Houston. But they do have real good arms. Justin Verlander, Zach Greinke. They got real good bats. Alex Bregman, Jose Altuve, George Springer, and Carlos Correa, and a lot of others. I'm not taking that away from them with that point. But I don't think it's going to be as easier said than done versus what it was the last couple of years. There's going to be a ton of pressure on their shoulders. But if I had to, I think Houston's going to make it through. I think they're going to make it through the very last game of this series between the White Sox, because I just think that the White Sox, they're in the best position possible, but they really do need to reshape the rest of their organization. This is a start, but it's not completely solidified yet. And I think that's where they need to work on that. On the other side, you got the Padres and the Phillies. Now, this is difficult, but this is actually going to be a fun-filled series because let me tell you something about San Diego. I love Fernando Tatis Jr. Okay, I love him. I love Eric Hosmer. I think this team has really gotten red hot at the right time with their power bats. I do think that there is some questions as far as their rotation goes, but they do have some impactful relievers in there. I mean, they upgraded a couple of real good pitching arms. They ended up getting a couple of real good pieces to kind of help with their depth. So I just feel like San Diego is really taking advantage of this shortened season, and they have not skipped a beat. And I think that this is going to be very interesting in this series. And on the other side of things, the Philadelphia Phillies. You know, I think they've got real good power bats. JT Realmuto is having a heck of a year. Bryce Harper, I think, is having a pretty good rebounding season. But here's the other thing. The rotation is young. The rotation is a mixture of young and old. It needs to be better. And also the bullpen needs to get better. This bullpen is very young. They haven't established themselves to pressure situational pitching, which as far as from the 6th through 8. Until you get into the 9th, you know who your closer is, and that's where Philadelphia does struggle the most. So I know that this might piss off my colleague, but I have a feeling that San Diego is going to make it through. I'm just being brutally honest. Without that bullpen being solidified for Philadelphia, and not to mention that rotation will help them in some ways, San Diego is going to make it through. So now you're going to have the Rays against the Astros, Dodgers against the Padres. On the other side, Cleveland and the Yankees. Last time these two met, Cleveland looked like they were in the driver's seat, and then New York answered back. I remembered when I saw that, I was literally in New York. I was up in New York City, right around Times Square. And the fun thing was, you know, my family and I, we've never even been to like an actual New York-themed sports bar. So we go to one of the local bars, and you got everybody. You got Knicks fans. You got Yankees fans. You got fans of all over New York. And it's loud. It's a little bit obnoxious. Everybody's drinking their beers, but it's exciting. It's fun. But that was the last time ever watching, you know, a Yankees-Indians series. And the Yankees prevailed. They made it through to the postseason. But I do believe that I think the Yankees might pull this off because this is a team that has really stacked themselves on their roster and on their rotation, getting Garrett Cole for high amounts of money, but also the bullpen. The bullpen kind of is a little bit questionable to me, but they do have some real good arms. I think the Yankees will pan this through. Look, I like Cleveland. I love Shane Bieber, and I also love Francisco Lindor and Jose Ramirez, but this team always seems to have a question mark on them for whatever reason. I don't know if that's a Cleveland thing, but I'm just looking at question marks and not I'm not treating these like red flags, but they just seem to have question marks that I don't even know what to think of them. But I just don't think that they have the rotation, and I don't think that they have the bullpen really set for a deep run. So I think the Yankees are going to really make it through against Cleveland. They're a nice team, real good team, but it is a lot of uncertainties. The Braves and the Cardinals. Okay, so we remember last year what happened, right? The Braves went all the way down to 5.
and then initially got upsetted by St. Louis. And Atlanta was a team with Ronald Acuna, Ozzie Albies, Freddie Freeman. This offense was really clicking. But the only problem that they had was situational baseball when it came to their bullpen. And that is one that I thought Atlanta's bullpen looked good, but then eventually they got broken down. And so I think Atlanta is really going to rebound themselves, and especially against the St. Louis team, which St. Louis is nice, but they still got a lot of things they have to reshape and refocus on. Jack Flaherty is really good on the inside the rotation. But still, I think that there are still a few pieces Louis really needs to fix up. I think Atlanta is going to make it through. I think they're going to play this all the way to the last game, but Atlanta's going to move on. I think they're going to make it through. Now, it is going to be very questionable about how they'll be in the second round of the postseason. But I do think Atlanta, they got it, the pieces. They're going to make this through. So finally, the 2 through 7. So you got the Oakland Athletics and the Minnesota Twins. So again, me not just speaking as an Oakland A's fan, but I do believe that this team really is getting red hot at the right moment. Now, I know that they lost the game against San Diego 7-0 last night. But if you looked at this team from top to bottom, they do have a stable rotation. It's not a great one, but it's stable. And then they also have some really good bullpen arms. This has been a team that has, last year, they had an ERA in their bullpen like under 2. And this was a team that really made it happen. Now, unfortunately, they just can't get it through to, get past the wild card round. But I feel like things are going to change. A short season like that with the momentum that they put in, these guys, the bats, Matt Chapman, Matt Olson, Steven Piscotty, all these guys are healthy. And the offense has really been clicking for them. So I do think that the A's, they're finally going to break away that curse. Bob Melvin is at least going to have a win from there. And they're going to beat the Minnesota Twins. Look, I'll be honest. The Twins, nice team, interesting. But I think most of the time, from what I've seen in the last couple of seasons, they were more stuck for power and they were more stuck for home runs rather than them playing small ball. I think that the second they play Oakland, it's going to be a ton of small ball from their side of things. And I think Oakland's going to take advantage of that. So I think the A's are going to make it through, and they're going to play against the New York Yankees. And then finally, you got the Chicago Cubs and the Miami Marlins. I mean, I don't think this is a no-brainer. This is a no-brainer. I think Chicago is going to make it through to Miami. Look, Chicago, I don't know where Yu Darvish came from, but he has really been the catalyst for their rotation. He's really pitched himself well. He's pitched himself a gem. And this year was interesting. And this is also the determining year of what they're going to do with some of their young bats. I mean, Chris Bryant, they've had questions surrounding him, but they still got some real good ones. Kyle Schwarber, Javi Baez, Wilson Contreras, Anthony Rizzo. They've got some real good power bats. But the question is that rotation, and the question is that bullpen. And that is something that I think Chicago really needs to get a hold of. But at the very least, they're playing against Miami. And I'll be honest, Miami doesn't even look that big of a team. They are lucky enough to even make it into the postseason. Short season, I mean, that's small ball play, but Miami doesn't truly have the right pieces for a deep run. I'll be honest. But I think Chicago's going to make it through, and they're going to have to refigure things into the second round of the postseason. So here's what I have. I got the Rays and the Astros, Yankees and the A's in the American League, Dodgers and the Padres, and then Braves and Cubs. So let's break down the Rays and the Astros. This, I think, is going to go all the way to the distance because most of that, here's what the Astros lost to? They lost to a deep pitching depth. That was the Washington Nationals that won the World Series last year. Tampa Bay's got interesting arms. Tyler Glasnow, I mean, they got a lot of really good arms on their sides, and their pitching staff, they're willing to play chess against a team like this. Now, the bats are going to be interesting, but of course, that's where they're going to have to work through that with them. But I think that this is going to be a big potential upset. I think the Tampa Bay Rays are going to upset the Houston Astros. I'll be honest. Too much pressure on their shoulders. And I truly believe that Houston, nobody wants them in the playoffs. Nobody wants them in the playoffs. Nobody even wants them even near the World Series, right? So, but the Rays are a red hot team. They've really caught fire. Their pitching has really gotten better. And again, this is an interesting team. Much like how I look at Columbus in the NHL, I don't expect them to be in the playoffs, but for some reason, they just keep punching their way in. But Tampa Bay's really shaped themselves well. I think they're going to make it in, and you'll see them in the ALCS. So, and then you have the Yankees and the Athletics. You know, as reasonable as I am, I truly think this is going to go the distance, but I think the Yankees are going to make it through. The only reason why that I say that the Yankees are is because, again, that money that they pay for bats and for pitching, it's too much. Too much for the A's. The A's are a really good team that they build upon young prospects, but at the same time, they wish they could have that type of money line. They really wish they could. I mean, good Lord. Do you know how happy of a camper Billy Beane would be just to have the same Yankee money? But they are tough grinders. I'm picking the Yankees on this one, but I will not be surprised if the A's beat them. I wouldn't be. That's kind of like just my sleeper thing. So I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case. But it will be interesting. It will be interesting to see. But I do have the Tampa Bay Rays and I do have the New York Yankees in the ALCS. In the National League, I've got the Dodgers and the Padres. Now, here's my thing about this matchup, because Dodgers and Padres, they've got a lot of young bats. They've got young pitching outside of Clayton Kershaw. This is actually a really good matchup, to be honest, and I think that this is going to go the distance. I think this is going to go the distance, and I think the Dodgers are going to make it through against the Padres. Look, I'll be honest. Padres are a really nice team. Okay, they're a really well-set team. But the rotation still needs help. And, I mean, the bullpen, maybe one more bullpen arm will do it. But at the same time, they need to fix that rotation. The rotation, I don't trust it enough. I've said this over and over again about San Diego. If we were playing 162 games a year, San Diego wouldn't be in this position. This is speaking truth. They wouldn't be in this position because the rotation is not legit enough. And they would have seriously needed to work the farm system just to make it through. So I think the Dodgers are going to make it through. I think the bats are really going to come alive for them, but it's going to go all the way to the distance. And they'll make it into the NLCS. And then finally, the Braves and the Cubs. So this is going to be interesting because I think both teams, in my opinion, sometimes can be streaky, but at the same time, I think Chicago has the upper hand when it comes to the bullpen. I think they've got the upper hand on that. So I'm going with the Cubs to beating the Braves. Last year, I was hoping, I know somebody's up in the comments and is a diehard Atlanta fan. I was hoping last year that the Braves were going to be in the NLCS. That didn't happen. They ended up losing to St. Louis. And that was one that was a disappointment in the National League. Because that was a team that was really good, stacked with real good players. But when I look at the Chicago Cubs, the Cubs have been on a mission. And their bats have really been coming alive. Now, I think this is going to be a distance game. And I think Chicago is going to come out on top. Because, I think this is going to be an exciting series. I think it's going to be an exciting series all the way around. But I do see the Cubs and the Dodgers in the NLCS once again, probably for like third, fourth time in the last couple of years. But That's how I have this set. I have the Rays and I have the Yankees in the ALCS, Dodgers and Cubs in the NLCS. And so this is where I'm going to end up going with this. I'm going to start with the National League first. So I have the Dodgers and the Cubs. These teams have met numerous times in the NLCS. Cubs have come out on top, and so have the Dodgers. I truly think, though, that the Dodgers, this series is going to go all the way to Game 7, and the Dodgers are going to make it through. Power bats, but at the same time, situational baseball. I think it's going to come down to the wire for both these clubs. And I think because again, the Dodgers are on a mission. Dodgers are on a mission to win the World Series. They're not going to be a disappointment this year. That's not what they're chasing for. But I do think it's going to be an exciting series. Interesting enough. I got one in the comments. What's going on, Uncle Goat? Really appreciate you being up on the show. He's got the Cubs in 6. I got the Dodgers in 7. Be honest. Because it's going to be exciting. It's going to be a test of both rotations and bullpens, and not to mention that lineup. It's going to be an absolute test on both ends. But I do see the Dodgers in 7, and I do see them going to the World Series, and they're on a mission to win it all. And finally, you got the Rays and the Yankees. Now, I know a lot of people probably are going to give me heat for this one because, the Yankees, they're injury plagued. They can't seem to stay healthy, but they are grinders. I think I give the Yankees that. They are grinders. They're going to make it through. I think this is going to go all the way to 7 between the Rays and Yankees because a lot of these guys on that lineup, they're going to figure it out. They're going to figure it out. And I truly think that the Yankees will pull it through. The rotation is going to do it. I mean, that's the only thing. If you lean the rotation on Garrett Cole and a couple of other good arms, they may give you exactly the quality innings. They're going to give you exactly the quality innings to make it through. So I think the Yankees will win this in 7 against Tampa. I just still think that Tampa is such a young team. And don't get me wrong, they are in the right position. They're in the right position to make something happen. But I just think at the end of the day, I think it's going to be a little bit too much. And they're facing against a team like the Yankees. Interesting to see. But then we're finally going to get a Yankees-Dodgers World Series. We're finally going to get what the public asked for X amount of years. Yankees-Dodgers World Series. And I think this World Series is going to go straight to 7. This might make my pops proud. And my grandfather, God rest his soul, this may make him proud. And he'll have the best seats in the house to watch it. But I do think the Dodgers, this time, will win the World Series in 7 games. I think the Dodgers are primed to winning it. They are on a mission because after the last couple of years, they've won pennants since 2013, and they haven't done anything with that. They've been to the World Series back-to-back in 17 and 18, lost in both of them. Disappointing. And the Dodgers are looking at this with no more disappointments. And this is where I think it's going to go all the way down to the wire in 7. And they're going to win it. Because Mookie Betts, you got arguably one of the best young bats in the lineup with him and Cody Bellinger, Jock Peterson, Max Muncy, Will Smith. Good God. This lineup is ridiculous to pitch around. It's true. And I think that this team really is something else. And I think they've really fixed up the pieces to make it happen. And look, I love Walker Buehler, and I do like Dustin May. I think this team has really stepped their game up. Bullpen looks a little better. But in a short season, in a short season like this is where they're going to take advantage of it all the way through. But I do have the Yankees, or I do have the Yankees and the Dodgers in the World Series, and I think the Dodgers are going to end up winning it in 7 games. So that's how I have it. If the postseason was to start, I have the Rays beating the Blue Jays, Astros beating the White Sox, Yankees beating the Indians, A's beating the Twins, Rays beating the Astros, Yankees beating the A's. Yankees ended up beating the Rays to go to the World Series for the American League. Dodgers beating the Rockies, Padres beating the Phillies, Braves beating the Cardinals, Cubs beating the Marlins, Cubs beating the Braves, Dodgers beating the Padres, Dodgers beating the Cubs to go to the World Series for the National League, and then the Dodgers winning the World Series against the Yankees. That's the way that I see it. 2020 World Series championship is going to go to the Dodgers. But I'll be honest with you. Is anybody going to care? Nah. Because it wasn't a full season. I hate to burst a lot of Dodger fans' bubbles, but I'm real and reasonable about this. But alrighty, guys, thank you so much for tuning in here on the Snake Sports Talk Show. I really do appreciate all of you guys coming on. Like me on Facebook, follow me on Twitter and Instagram for all social media platforms you can find me on. I post on it daily. Subscribe to the home of the Snake Sports Talk Show. That is the Spotlight Sports Network YouTube channel. Hit the like button, hit the notification bell, and get all of the latest news, analytics, and all of your favorite shows on one network. And also follow us on Spotify for all of our audio playlists as well from all of the latest live streams. And also look us up on spotlightsportsnetwork.com for all of your favorite shows, all of your favorite colleagues. We have articles posted up and we got merchandises. Guys, definitely got to check it out as well. So I am out of here for today. Have a great Saturday to you. Have a great weekend. And I hope to see you tomorrow morning. I got a stacked show here tomorrow. So can't wait to see you guys. 7 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. Eastern time. Can't wait to see you guys tomorrow. Have a great Saturday.